and welcome to another episode of the Complete Agent Podcast, where each week we get together to talk all things estate agency. My name is James Kendall. I'm not David Warburton, but I am joined by Michelle Smith and Ian Storey. Let's go to you first, Ian Storey.
Yes, I was hoping you'd say that. Good morning, everyone. Hope everyone is well. Well, we've had a good week. I was just looking before our listings since the last podcast, and we've had 6 confirmed. 525, 650, 700, 750, 1.1 and 1.25. So a beautiful pit of the market that, you know, between 500 and 1.25 is, for us, is like, those kind of properties on 2% is amazing because generally they'll sell.
I call them gold dust, those ones, mate.
Well, I call gold dust actually between 5 and a mil. So you need to get your lingo correct.
Sorry.
And then I got conversations today with 2 that I've been to that look promising at 1.25 and 1.75 that aren't yet confirmed. So listing's good. I have to say half of those, about half of those are Matt's, half of those are mine. So that's a nice mix. And then no actual sales agreed since the last pod, but we have had offers on, I think there's offers actively currently on 4 properties that Phil is beavering away at. And then we had a superb training session this week with Michelle and the team on Tuesday, I think, which was great. Monday, brilliant shoot of a property and the sun stayed out. Matt's got an amazing £2 million shoot today where we're taking another Porsche along. So that's really good. So for me, you know, overall, I think things are positive and in a good shape. Of course, the underlying thing to everything, which we're discussing with clients all the time, is that there's loads in the market. You've got to price your house right. You've got to market it well. You may have heard me say that before.
It sounds like a Craig David song. Craig David, eat your heart out.
Does it?
Got listing on Monday. It's doing this on Tuesday. Wednesday, Thursday. Sold 5 on Sunday.
That was a little bit too
loud.
I think you need to work on your accents there because it almost went a bit Jimmy Savile.
Did it? So, do you want to tell him, Michelle? That's what it sounds like.
Let's stick with Tyson Fury.
That's cool. So how's your week been, Michelle?
My week's been great. I obviously was in Cheshire doing the Q1 strategy review that we do every quarter. Then the training session in the afternoon, and then a full day of coaching with each of Team Storey. I've also got the kids at home still because, don't yay, because with my perimenopausal brain, I actually gave the kids an extra week off school because I booked the holiday wrong. So I had to take them out of school to go to Centre Parks a week early. Who needs a 3-week Easter break? Not me. Yeah, I know, and I'm going to get fined for it. So, and I'd done it right. But when I look back, I'd actually looked at the 2027 term time. So I'll just add it to the catalogue of errors that, you know, I'm going through in this era of my life. 3 weeks off for the kids, final week this week. So the juggle is real. So they're currently upstairs, threatened with death if they come downstairs to interrupt the pod. So there we go. That's my week in a nutshell.
Oh, good timing. And I strategically ran off the doorbell there and had to answer the front door, and then came back and just said you'd finished a week. So what great timing that was. So in terms of our week, we've a couple of sales under our belt, one at 840, another one just over 3 mil. Got offers on one at 6 and an offer on another one at the staged house. We've got a like 375. So we've got some offers coming in at the moment. They're not at the kind of level really that the sellers are totally happy with, but that is the market at the moment. And the conversations that we're having with clients is that ultimately it's the market's the market, right? You know, the conflict in the Middle East, the interest rates, everything's more expensive. It is a tricky time. So if you're trying to get deals wrapped, it's your time in the market. And I went to go and see somebody yesterday. Actually, they've been on the market for 18 months. I got through the door and they were like, oh well, the market's bad, isn't it? And I was like, well, look, the market isn't bad. It's just a price sensitive market. And you just need to make sure that you're priced within what the market actually is at the moment, because the problem that you've got, and I showed him the data, as I said, it's not the market, it's your price. I mean, your marketing's not great. I mean, I can definitely improve on the marketing, but I said, look, what's the Einstein saying? Insanity is doing the same thing, expecting a different result. There's no point in me supercharging your marketing at the same price, because all you're going to get is a few more viewings from people that still don't want to buy it. It's the price. And I said to him, look, ultimately, he said, oh, well, how would you feel if, I mean, this was only talking about like 460, 470. I think it was on like 495 at the moment. I said, looking at the data, actually looks like a £450,000 house in the current market. I said, and that's, just according to the data. So if I was you, I would be looking at relaunching at 450 or offers over 450 and see what happens. But it ain't going to happen at 495 and we couldn't sell it for any less than 470. And I said to him, why? And she said, well, the one we want to buy in Hertfordshire, that's up at 490. I said, all right, okay. I said, well, how long's that been on the market for? Well, that's been on the market a year as well. All right, what's the situation with that property? Oh, it's a retirement place. It's in probate. I said, has the agent that you're on with at the moment broached a question with the person that's selling the retirement apartment that if you got a cash offer from a buyer at 450 tomorrow, and that meant you could offer cash on their apartment at 450, would they do the deal? And they went, no, we haven't done that. I'm just thinking to myself, what? They've just been sat there. But again, it's just classic shit estate agency. Like, it's been sat there for a year. There's been I think we talk about it all the time. You go back to the client's why. Why are they moving? Ask the right questions and solve the problems. Light bulb went off in their head. I said, well, look, if you want to come with me, it's going to be 2%. So I appreciate it's going to be double what you're paying now, but it's more than double than what you're paying, because at the moment you're paying 0% because they're not going to get you moved. And unfortunately, Mr. Is quite poorly. He's got dementia. He's got a Zimmer frame. They need to get near family. And I actually said to her, to use one of Dave's lines, what does this look like if you're still in this house again for the next year, like, and you're away from your family? And she said, oh, it'd be terrible. I said, well, there you go. We need to take action. So this is what we need to do. I'm going to send you a proposal. You're going to need to sign it. We'll get the styling done, get it taken off with the current agent. We'll relaunch it. I'll speak to the agent in Hertfordshire, and we'll say to them, if this, and I also said to her, if they won't do it, you need to dip into savings or find some money from elsewhere, because in the nicest way, and this is fucking brutal, I said, but you can't take this money with you. And at the moment, the time and your health constraints, you've done this for 3.5 years. And you're not going to get any better. So you need to rip the Band-Aid off and make this jump. Now, I'm going to try and make that for you as pain-free possible in financial terms. But we need to make this happen. If we're going to make this happen, this is what we're going to do. And like the lady said to me, she because it was like husband and wife. Husband's the one that's poorly. She's in pretty good shape. She said to me, she goes, thank you so much. She goes, we just really needed to hear that. And because at the time, these words, you guys know what I'm like, because you know me. Sometimes I'm a bit too direct with stuff. But I just thought, you know what? It's what you need to hear. And this poor old guy, like, lovely man, like, really lovely old boy. And I just thought to myself, like, that was my grandparents I was sat in the room with. Like, what advice would I be giving them? And that was the advice that I'd given them. Anyway, so all in all, guys, been a good week. But it's tough out there, but there's the pricing conversations need to be had. I've got a few clients that are unrealistic, unfortunately. I think everyone's got unrealistic clients, and it's one of those things that happens sometimes. But I would say 70% are on board, and they can see the fact that you can articulate to people with what's happening with the swap rates and where interest rates have gone in the last 4 weeks. Interest rates have risen by 1% in the last 4 weeks on mortgages, which, I mean, what was the stat? I think it was 25,000 mortgages have been repriced, which is more than when we had the mini budget can't speak, more than when we had the mini budget. And think about the amount of airtime that got, right? It's not quite as devastating in terms of the rates that rose, but the amount of mortgages that got repriced, to reframe it in context. And as I said last week, never waste a crisis. But anyway, that has been my week. And this week, we're going to talk all about Michelle, well, not about Michelle, about what Michelle...
Really boring, to be fair.
Yeah. Thanks for joining us, guys. We'll see you next... No, just... So, Michelle, anyone who hasn't come across you before, who are you? What do you do day to day? And how did you end up in sort of specialising with training? Because we've obviously... I know this story, which is why I've asked the question I've asked. But, you know, for people that don't know you and know how much experience that you've got in the property industry, like, talk us through it.
Okay. So I came into training and coaching partway through my estate agency career. So I started, do you know what? I'm really hazy. I think it was 2001.
No one's going to check.
No, 2002. I've got a black spot, I think. Too many cocktails on a Friday night in that era. And I started with a good old corporate countrywide, cut my teeth as a negotiator, and have pretty much done most roles within estate agency and property. So from corporates to independents to new build to looking at land. So I've done a kind of wide variety. I think where I really came into my own in property was actually when I worked for another corporate, Reeds Rains, and I had an amazing mentor as in my regional operations director. He put me... I had Amelia then, so Amelia is my first child. So I'd gone back into estate agency part-time as a neg, and he kind of saw in me that I had more to give. And he said, I've got a failing branch. It's not been profitable for 7 years. The staff aren't changing. They're the same staff that have run it, and whilst it's unprofitable, so their faces are on the floor. They're really demotivated. I think you're the ideal person to go in and turn it around. So I papped my pants, as you do, and went in, and it literally turned everything for me personally around, as in I got my love of estate agency back. And within the first year within that branch, I doubled residential income by 100% and got profitable within a year with exactly the same team. And what I actually learned about myself is my strength and skill is in getting the best out of people, and how to empower a team to perform and love what they do, because that was the difference. That's how I turned it around. So previous to that, when the crash came in 2008, I jumped out of property because, you know, it was a bit dire, wasn't it? And I had been doing a training qualification through the Chartered Institute of Personnel and Development. And on that course, I'd met somebody, a friend, and I ended up getting an introduction to a mentoring and training consultancy. So I actually went to work for them for about 3 years, and that was completely different for me, but it really embedded my training and coaching skills. And what that entailed was working with different organisations throughout the Northwest. And it was anyone really, from sole traders up to multinationals. And we delivered training on leadership and management skills, personal effectiveness, sales, and coaching, you know, in between all of those things. So that gave me a real wide appreciation of business and what the actual real challenges are outside of the property industry. And what it made me know is actually everyone faces the same challenges, whatever you're doing. We still have the same cash flow. We still have the same need to get sales. We still have the same people needs and how to get the best out of people. So after that, the training and the coaching really was pivotal to my success in whatever role I did. So fast forward further, another child in the mix, and ended up working for Ian. I've been friends with Ian for well over 20 years.
Sorry to hear that.
I know. It's been, been hard, but someone has to do it. So I worked for Ian. Didn't actually mean to work for him for long, if I'm being honest. We were just bridging a gap that he had. And 5 years later, I was still there. And the role had evolved into doing the training and coaching for his team because he was going through extraordinary growth. And it was really needed to make sure that the growth happened. And last year, I decided that I wanted to just focus on what I was passionate about, which is the coaching and the training. He'd already introduced me to you guys. So
sorry about that.
Yeah, I know. Do you know what? I need to just cut him loose. He's not brought anything in, has he? Not brought anything. And that's where kind of my partnership and my role within TCA started, which is forever evolving and really, really exciting. So on a day-to-day now, I do some operational jobs for TCA, and we're doing loads of stuff behind the scenes because the membership is evolving and is about to go through a period of growth. And I also do training and development for the members of TCA. So it's varied, and I absolutely love it.
So obviously going through the years, and if you're, let's say, for example, in and out of TCA, you've done a lot of training with agencies. And I guess you never get a second chance to make a first impression. But when you first walk into an agency, what do you think are the sort of the first, 3 things that you look at that are going to tell you whether this business is going to grow or stagnate?
The first thing, if I walk in, I'm actually looking for a feeling. So how does it feel to walk into that business? I'm very intuitive. And I pick up a lot of different signals. You can tell a lot by the feeling and the culture that is on show. I also look at the leadership. So if nothing changes at the top, nothing changes. So how open are they? The thing that most people don't like to hear is generally if there's something happening that isn't quite right, it's down to something that's happening at the leadership at the top. So are they open to that being addressed? And the third thing, I think it's the aspiration of not only the leadership and the team. So are we all going in the same direction? Does everyone have the same motivation and drive to get where it needs to be?
Okay. And what does proper training culture look like in a estate agency? Paint us a picture.
Oh, that's a great question. I can tell you what it isn't. It isn't just going online and doing a little course.
Buying a course for £100 a month and going, there you go, tick those tick boxes.
Yeah, putting the tick in the box. That definitely isn't what it is. Training culture is, if I could kind of paint my ideal picture, it is a culture that has got a growth mindset, that is always looking to continually improve. It's never finished. Nobody's the finished article in work and outside of work. We can always learn, we can always grow. So it's having that attitude of development and the willingness to do the work. And what I mean by that is I can go in and deliver a session. It has to then be embedded. So
talk about a little bit, unpack that a little bit. So maybe I think there's some real value in there. Like, what does a session look like? I know there's different things that you do in multifaceted. There's been sales progression, culture, etc. But what does a session? Just to kind of, because people will go, I've been through because I've had experience of. I haven't said this to you actually. TCA members that I've spoken to where they've done industry training where it's classic guy at the front of the room going, right, guys, make sure you smile when you dial and stand up when you answer the phone. And this is how you want it. Like they've had that training, but then they've also had training and input from you, and they've said it's just completely different. It's night and day. Like, it's not the standard sort of cookie cutter, stand at the front of the room, in a suit and tell about what used to work on valuations 30 years ago. It's relevant to what's happening now and, what's being implemented in businesses like Stories.
So, yeah, it's really interesting you say that, JK, because there's the entertainment of training. And what I mean by that is what you're saying is, somebody can go to a conference or a session or a workshop, and during that session or workshop, they will feel good. They'll think, yeah, these are great ideas. Love it. Yeah. Woo. And then they go back to their everyday job and they carry on doing the same that they do every single day. So there's been no tangible implementation skills given. So how I like to work is different, as in you have to understand what the bottlenecks are of why people aren't doing the things already, because nobody wants to do I don't believe people want to do a poor job. I believe people would like to work optimally.
Can we just unpack that a little bit more as well then? So just in context, what would that look like? A little bit. Just, and I appreciate, just for context for anyone that is listening, Michelle said she'd come on the pod today. We were going to have a chat, and now I said to her literally 5 minutes before we press record, by the way, I'm going to ask you all these questions. So you're welcome. So I have put you on the spot.
No, it's fine. Sorry, what am I unpacking now? What did you...
When you go in, you say, no, the bottlenecks of the business.
Yeah.
But you kind of doing an initial audit. But what does that look like? What sort of questions are you asking, and what sort of information are you trying to tease out before you can start putting it right?
So why things aren't happening now? What you don't want to. If you've got a member of staff that feels like they've got bottlenecks and you don't understand those, I'll go along, or somebody would go along and say, right, this is what we're going to do next, and this is going to get you great results, and, give them all the blurb. But if you haven't taken the time to understand actually what's happening for them right now, it's really then hard for them to go in and implement. Firstly, they're probably going to be turned off because they think, oh, well, you don't understand the realities of my role. But secondly, you're not dealing with the practicalities of how they can do it on a day-to-day basis. So it's just taking the time to understand and ask and getting it out. And I think sometimes people can see that as a negative, and they really want training to be dead positive and upbeat, and we're not interested, and you can decide straight away just to do it or not do it. Actually, that's not real life, is it? More important for me to get it all out on the table. They are heard, they are understood, and then work with their challenges and their bottlenecks to still get the end result. If you don't do that, you're on your own agenda. You have your thing that you need to get across as a trainer, and you're just saying it, but that's your agenda. You have to be on the agenda of the other person if you truly want to get it embedded.
Can I ask a question then? So, Ian, you're sitting there nodding your head. Obviously, you've had the benefit of Michelle for 5 years. Like, maybe, without going too deep, give us an example of where you've sat in the room and you've heard her speak to the team and this, that, and the other, and something that's really made what started out as maybe a micro habit and then evolved into something bigger, maybe.
The first thing that comes to mind for me, and it goes back to what Michelle says about everything having to start from the top. So it has to start from the top, and you have to be open to that, which I was. I just sort of do what Michelle says within reason.
That's fine.
Joking, listening, Alex. And the first thing that comes to mind is that if you praise when praise is needed, when praise is earned, served, then that gives you permission to be able to pull people up when they've done something wrong. And I think that one thing that I did badly, and I think most people are like this, we're good estate agents, we're not necessarily good business people, or it takes a long time to learn that skill, is that I think what I always used to do when something went wrong was just, be pissed off about it and tell them I was pissed off about it. But at no other time really did I praise much. Every now and then maybe, but now I proactively do that openly.
Yeah. And what difference has that had on the culture in the business then?
And the team, I think the team respect me more. The other thing to go alongside that, I think, is that I pull myself up when I've done something wrong.
Yeah.
I fucked up on something this week. I can't think why. I think it was a valuation I'd gone to. I hadn't written down the figure. So I'd made some sort of mistake, and I told the team. I could have covered it quite easily. I could have got away with it. No one would ever have known. But I made sure that I told them that I'd made that mistake, and this is what I'd done to rectify it. And I think if you can get those habits nailed, it creates a really good culture in the team, because the team, you know, you're owning up to the fact that you're only human, aren't you? And that we all make mistakes.
Like you say, it comes from the top.
Yeah, and that's really the one thing. That's probably the first thing. There's loads of other things, but that's one of the big ones for me.
I just want to add to that, actually. I think that's really key. I always talk about, timely praise. So if you want more of a behaviour, if you focus on it and recognise it, naturally you will get more of that behaviour. So it's a really good way of moulding behaviour and culture in a very positive way. And you asked the question, JK, what started as a micro habit and how has it evolved? So when I was in Stories this week, I was just doing writing up my notes in between a coaching session, waiting for the next person to come in. And the training on the afternoon before, I'd given them, we were doing story-based questioning to deepen and strengthen relationships. And both Meg and Phil were on the phone, and the questioning that, you know, it was literally textbook from what we'd spoken about the day before. And I was literally about to get up and say it, that was superb. And before I did and got the chance, Aid, as soon as they put the phone down, was like, Meg, that was brilliant. That questioning, that was great. And I could tell that you got a really good response from that. So yes, it started from coaching Ian at the top, but actually now the whole team have, got on board with that and they do it for each other. It's magic.
And so another thing you do, again, without breaking any confidence, but you've just done a quarterly review with Storey. Yeah. That's something that you have been doing for a long time and doing regularly.
Yeah.
What would you say is sort of one of the headlines there? Because I know there was a great result of not on the market updates and on market letters. I know that was a big thing. Like, how do you, obviously with the team as well, how do you sort of turn a nice chat about numbers into something that actually changes behaviour on a Monday morning?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So when, if we're doing a Q1 review of figures, obviously you're looking at it commercially, of, where is the business operating? Where does it need to be to get to the kind of year end result? And how do you translate that into daily behaviour? One example that is really tangible for Stories is we worked out how much each phone call that books a valuation is worth. So when they pick up the phone, every single time, whether that valuation cancels, whether it goes ahead, whether it lists, whether it doesn't, it's worth £2,500. So that takes a top line commercial figure that is then put into the strategic plan, and then that's broken down. And now they literally have a sign above the door which says 2,500 PV. So they see it, it's in their eye line. So then the everyday learning is, are you giving £2,500 worth of kind of pizzazz on that call? So it is what they do. So that's just one example of how you can break down, your commercial element into a behaviour.
So when you sit down with the team, let's take it away from Stories for a second, but I know you've done training elsewhere, and without sort of breaking any confidence, when you sit down with the team and share numbers like that, what's kind of the reaction in the room? Do agents normally know where their business is coming from, or is it just like a genuine light bulb moment?
No, I think the majority aren't as close to their figures as, or ideal is what is ideal, and also don't use the figures in the best way possible. So that was a practical example of how you can use your figures and bring them to life for your team. there can be a lot of corporatisms as, kind of very KPI centric. And I'm always very much, just be careful what you measure, because you'll probably get it. And is that what you want? So make sure that you are putting the focus on the right metrics to shape and mould the behaviour that you want.
So another question then, and so on the other side of this, what's the cost of getting this all wrong? What does an untrained or undertrained agency look like from the outside?
It's really hard to work in. It's a very hard business to run. I think it ends up being harder for the business owner or leader than it needs to be. I don't think the growth or the opportunity or the potential will be realised. You may have a higher staff churn, which in itself, recruitment's a nightmare, isn't it? But it's really hard to say to somebody unless they've experienced the flip side. So, I know Ian has operated in both because I've known him a long time. And it is literally night and day. So you don't know how bad it is until you get good.
Yeah.
It's all well and me saying
wrong.
Yeah, you don't realise until you resolve it and move forward. And then you can look back and think, oh my God, why did I wait? Why didn't I deal with this sooner or later? But I think training is one of those things that unless you've had really good training that's impacted you and your business, you don't understand the value of it either.
I think sometimes the biggest misconception people have about training, and I think I've been there as well, is that people sit there and think, I know how to be an estate agent, I know how to list houses, I know how to sell houses. And that's great. As we've all kind of gone through the journey in terms of going from sort of £999 plus VAT or less to selling, the mid to upper end of the market, you have to, and I think you said it maybe a few weeks back, Ian, you've said it before as well, like your mindset changed in terms of, it wasn't just that daily commoditized estate agency. You wanted to really get onto, selling homes that you could get excited about yourself. And I think a lot of estate agents think training is, a lot I've just alluded to a minute ago, in a random meeting room with a U-shaped formation of desks, sat down for a day, listening to someone at the front speak, point at a whiteboard, death by PowerPoint. And that to me, or even, I've paid £100 a month to do multiple choice and get certificates online. Like, that is so unengaging, and that is not going to be, not going to give you a good result for your team. And I think the big difference in what I've seen from what you provide and where I've had most success with training myself is, if you're not training and you're not constantly learning, and training is, if you think of yourself like a professional athlete. Now, the professional, let's take footballers, for example. So apologies, Ian, you're not really going to know what we're talking about here. Like, footballers know how to play football, right? And they don't just turn up every Saturday and, 11 aside, let's crack on and kick a ball. They train 2-3 times a week before they play at the weekend. And the training is the constant, whether it's fitness, whether it's working on set pieces, in agency, that can be how you answer the phone, how you're dealing with valuations, how you're dealing with the valuations on the property, going deeper into what we do, staging and styling, how does that work? What does training look like for that? How does it feel for somebody to ring your office? You said earlier about walking into an agency and getting a feel for the vibe. One of the things I did the other week when we were having our sort of more in-depth weekly meeting was I was talking about when people walk into our office, and I'd noticed something a few weeks back that really annoyed me. A client walked in, prospective client walked into the office, and everyone was just sat down. And that is just not the way you do it. And they know better as well. They all thought somebody else was going to get up. But I said, look, someone's walking into an unknown entity and, thinking about possibly selling a house or looking to buy a house. And, they're nervous already about opening the front door and having all these eyes on them. You need to stand up, greet them, welcome them, take them over to, we've got like an island in the office, take them over to the island, sit them down, offer them a drink, make them feel welcome. And that is just one of those things where if you're not constantly training and holding yourselves to account of a set standard, then standards will slip. And I think training, people need to get out of the mindset of training is not just standing at the, sitting in a room or sending your team on once a year a U-shaped training room with someone talking at the front. It's about those daily meetings that you have, them daily micro habits, the weekly meetings that you have where you round everything off, and just constantly keeping on top of everything. So, I mean, Michelle, the other thing I was going to say is we've talked about what isn't so good, and we've talked about where people go wrong. Flipping that on the other side, now, obviously in TCA, you do work with a lot of agencies doing well. Mm. What does the next level look like for a business that's already doing sort of, well into 6, early 7 figures? What starts to matter when the basics are already handled?
Oh, this is the great bit. So, yeah, it is. So this is getting everybody in the mindset. And I say this time and time again, that best is the enemy of better. So the most of the people in TCA, they're the best in their area, without a shadow of a doubt. You don't want to kind of get lost in that though, because everybody is copying you and everyone is watching you. So if you don't continually evolve and grow, then you may not continue being the market leader in that area. However, the evolution is all about the people. So it's about the client experience. So once you are, doing everything really well, the next layer is how do we amplify this client experience? Because actually that's what you win on. So that's the stuff that you can really get your teeth into and people can get creative with. Just to kind of give you a working example, and I just want to add this in as well to refer back to the question before. So I think there's huge value in continual training, and the reason why is probably about 6 months ago on this kind of client experience journey that we're doing with Stories. We put a huge focus on the buyer, so the buyer's kind of experience, and the focus came very heavily on servicing them and giving them an exceptional service. So practically things needed to happen. Yes, there was training and coaching on what the best way to do that is, but then there's the practicalities of how is this going to be embedded and made to be a daily focus. So how's that going to be picked up in the morning meeting? What's the accountability for the team, and how's that going to be kind of kept on top of, and who's got the responsibility for doing that? So all of that stuff had to happen together with the kind of traditional training, if you will. But just so that was 6 months ago. So when I came back and I did individual coaching with them, it was phenomenal. And this is a bit, it gives me the absolute warm and fuzzies, because the results that they had from doing that and doing the implementation plan and being consistent with it was phenomenal. So this is like real estate agency, I would say. So creating something from nothing. So they've got a hot buyer in a nurture that they're dealing with. They know them. They talk about them. They talk about them in the Monday morning meeting. They have to say who the hot buyers are, what's going on for them. They had one, and from getting to know them properly, they remembered a property that they had that came off the market 4 years ago, 4 years, phoned them, signed a 1 viewing agreement, got this buyer in, and that's likely going to be tied together. Now, how good does that neg feel? They have literally created that from nothing. So when you're talking about a difficult market, when the buyers are dominant, one of the best ways to approach it is make sure you are really, really servicing those buyers, because you will create magic, Not only that, for them, they were absolutely buzzing, so energized. I just said, how does it feel to have this focus with the buyers? Just said it's amazing, because they think they're the best things since sliced bread, because obviously no other agent is doing that. And you get those classic conversations. Well, I'm on the market and you speak to me more than my agent, and they've never sent me any properties to view, and they're my agent, etc., etc. So, it's twofold, isn't it? You're making great business deals come together, but also you're energising yourself. So that's really the power of the multiple touch points.
I'm just thinking of some practical takeaways as well. Like, so if someone's listening to this now and they run an agency and they've gone, do you know what? I've listened to this pod. You guys are right. I need to get serious about training this quarter. What's the first thing you'd tell them to do on a Monday morning?
I would.
Phone to TCA. Sorry.
Yeah, be a TCA member, obviously.
After you've done that, what would
that? Okay. I'd be really clear on what you want to achieve. So it's got to start with the outcome. What do you want? Because if you don't know what you want, you can't get a tangible result. So I do believe training and development should be measurable in whatever way. That may not be KPI measurable, but you need to know what it is you want. If you don't know what it is you want, and that does happen, you can know that something isn't right, and not quite know what it is that you need or you want, then I would get a coach to come in and help you clarify your thinking.
Would I be right in saying that a lot of people just float?
Yeah.
They start their business, they get to a certain level, things are turning over, things are okay, and I mean, I've been there, to be fair. You float, you get complacent, and sometimes I feel like, and this is how I felt really, I think probably 8 years ago now, when the fire really for me went out for a estate agency, when we were doing average fees of like $3,000 or something like that. And, the bank never really seemed to go up. Nothing ever really seemed to move forward. We were doing okay. Had an okay car, an okay house. Everything was just okay. I was comfortable, but, it wasn't breaking any records. And the fire kind of went out. And then I got serious about, training and developing myself. And I think, we said it last week. We were talking on the pod about, your mindset changes and you realize there's more out there. And, you see people doing videos in front of amazing homes and, selling incredible properties, doing incredible marketing. You just think to yourself, actually, yeah, this is a bit of me. So here's a question for you then. It's again another takeaway for anyone listening to this. There's been lots of gold here, but what's one training habit that costs nothing but pays back tenfold?
One training habit. Do you know what? I don't think actually. I think you can go more granular than that, and to have a productive weekly meeting. Mm-hmm. I see very ineffective weekly meetings that bore the absolute backside off team members. Don't forget that wherever you focus, your team will follow. So make sure that you are having a really punchy, productive weekly meeting that gets everybody focused and knowing exactly what it is that they need to achieve for that week. So that's a really simple implementation. If you're doing it already, I would just give that a little audit, resulting in what, always ask that question. I'm doing this team meeting and what does it result in? That would be probably a very small first step.
We're still constantly evolving those meetings. So, I mean, they've evolved this week, haven't they? We've popped in a couple of new elements to that meeting, a couple of things to do with me and Matt with listings, diary management, and a couple of things to do with Meg and Phil and the sort of office team. So we're evolving that all the time. And it's now grown to this like 8-foot wide whiteboard in the office that Aidan plans out every Friday at 4:30 for the Monday morning meeting after the weekend. So on the Friday, last thing, Aidan writes it all up on the board and we know exactly what's happening. We get in Monday morning at 8:30, before 8:30, and everything's there ready to go. So the team is sat down at 8:30 with a coffee and we get moving. And that evolves every week.
I'll just add to that because I think there's some real value there. Firstly, it's planned. Mm-hmm. Secondly, there's a structure. And thirdly, it aligns with the strategic priorities for the business and the embedding of the behaviour change. So those three things are hit in the Monday morning meeting because I'm not that, I might go once a quarter, but it's that management of those goals and priorities and the planning of it and the structure of it that makes it work. And it's a real powerful management tool that can help embed training. So that would be it. If you're not doing that, or if you can improve on it, that would be a great start.
So to throw the ball back at you, obviously you've given some amazing advice on here and obviously in training sessions to people. Flipping it the other way, what's the best bit of training advice you've ever been given?
Never believe anyone's bullshit, especially your own.
I like that. What do they say? There's I know it's probably a different analogy, but sometimes like there's always your story, their story, and the truth.
Yeah.
That's slightly different, but yeah.
The reason why I like it is we get in our own way all the time. The reason why people don't achieve what they want to achieve is the stories that they're telling themselves in the head. So my job as a coach and trainer is to really put a mirror on those in a real, positive, supportive way and help them get out of their own way. So yeah, I would say that when that really hit me, that moved the needle for me.
I think if anyone's listening to this, and then you say, obviously, you do a lot of sessions with our members, masterminds and outside of masterminds as well. If anyone's listening to this and wants to kind of have a sort of free, no obligation chat with Michelle about their needs and whether it could be right for them, I would definitely reach out and just ask the question, because it may be right for you, it may not be right for you. A lot depends on your mindset, but definitely have a chat, even if it's on direct message or on Facebook or LinkedIn or something like that. Just have a bit of a chat and see whether there are gaps or whether there are availability for you to really, if you want to move your business onto the next level. I can wholeheartedly recommend it. And I know that there are, you look at some of our members without calling out any particular names, but you just look at the focus it's given them to implement and achieve. Look, obviously Stories is a fantastic success story that, you guys have worked together for years, and I know you're not the finished article because you're always constantly trying to improve. But
JK, I also think that on that point there that you've made, the members who attend the mastermind religiously every quarter, it's a mini coaching session once a quarter now as well, isn't it? Because they're getting so much value from all four of us, whether it's one of the three of us who's on the ground being in a station every day, or it's Michelle with all this amazing experience she just talked about. It's like a mini coaching session every quarter. And it's interesting that the ones who actually attend religiously and implement are the ones who are getting the great results and getting the higher fees and getting into the nicer houses.
We just see some of the social, like for example, social media. Like, I am going to big them up on the podcast. I'm not sure whether they're going to listen, but I've just looked at. They keep coming up on my feed constantly. So Steve Carroll has been absolutely. Because I know you kind of set him a mini challenge, didn't you? For doing bits on social media, and he's been incredible with that. And you just see the results, like it's constant, and the results he's had in recent times is fantastic. I love Annabelle's social media as well. I'm not trying to say everyone else isn't doing anything great. There's just a couple that I just feel like I've seen recently where they've like implemented the market updates. Like Nick has implemented the market updates on video as well. Like they've not. Progress over perfection, I think, is probably what it is. They've not gone, right, okay, well, I need a perfect studio set up and I need to get the guy that films ITV to do the video for me. They've just gone on, done it. They've taken your script, they've put it out there, and they're reaping the rewards from it. I think it's fantastic. It's a great community, and obviously I'm biased because I am part of it. And I think everyone that is on an exclusive basis should join because it is, to quote Ian Storey, incredible. Anyway,
it is.
We will call it a day. Unless, sorry, Michelle, were you going to say something else?
No, I was just going to say they are a great group. And I think being part of a community that are forward-looking, have a growth mindset, you can't help but be energised by that. You want to do better. There's not one in there that's not pushing forward. They're a great group.
Oh, 100%. Like I say, I could go through everyone and say, you've done this well, I've noticed this, I've noticed that, but we're going to run out of time because we're already hit 50 minutes. And it's been a great pod. And I think, have you guys got anything else to add before we bid our good listeners goodbye for another week?
No, I don't think so.
No, cool. All right. Well, thanks for listening, everyone. Dave, hopefully, will be back next week, Diet Coke in hand, and we will see you next week. Have a good week.
Bye.